So, because I'm I'm a hip and fresh kid these days. I've partaken at some points in my life in the marijuana. Not too much. I'm still saving myself for for my future wife. But what does that even mean? Look, some bullshit happened. Okay, can we just take a look at this bullshit? Biden's White House is firing staffers for marijuana use. That's a mistake. Please look at this. This is unbelievable to me. Seriously. Okay. Oh, where's the background? There we go. Look at this. Hello from Liberal Bastion, New York, which one day in the near future may join the other 15 states that have legalized recreational marijuana. I think that's like about to happen, isn't it? That doesn't include Washington, D.C., which, and let me be really clear about this point, legalized the possession of marijuana for recreational use in 2015. Like, so D.C., Washington, D.C., where the White House is, legalized marijuana for recreational use 6 years ago. Okay? During the Obama administration. But the Biden administration has had dozens of young White House staffers suspended, asked to resign, or placed in a remote work program due to past marijuana use. That's even though some staffers were informally told by transition higher-ups ahead of formally joining the administration that they would likely overlook some past marijuana use, only to be asked later to resign. This right here is some mega boomer bullshit, okay? I have like 20 things to say about it, but first, hold on. On Friday, the White House press secretary, Jen Psaki, semi-confirmed the report, saying that the bottom line is this. Of the hundreds of people hired, only 5 who had started working at the White House are no longer employed as a result of this policy. Notice that this phrasing covers only those who have been let go in full, not any who have been suspended or whose cases are still being adjudicated. So it's probably dozens, not just the 5. Now, yes, the fact that marijuana is totally illegal on the federal level, not just in the federal city, but the policy still has reportedly affected staffers whose marijuana use was exclusive to places where it was legal. It's a continuation of a trend across the federal government as more states have legalized, in which hitting the blunt while holding a clearance is grounds to have it remote. So we need to talk about this. We need to think, okay? First of all, I think there's often a tendency to think of marijuana and marijuana rights and marijuana legalization as like some fun teenage college shit. You know what I mean? A lot of people think about it that way. Like, dude, man, weed's legal here now. Like, yeah, or some shit like that. That's usually how people tend to think of it. But in reality, marijuana legalization is an unbelievably important, broader political issue, in large part because, hey, everyone smokes weed. Okay? Everyone smokes weed. Seriously. Nowadays, everyone smokes weed. Okay? And why wouldn't they? All right? Alcohol is significantly more dangerous. It can exacerbate addiction issues. It can exacerbate anger issues. It can compel you to do really irresponsible or illegal or destructive behavior. Marijuana, for most people, and again, this varies person to person, marijuana is generally a much safer recreational drug, like by a long standing. It also tends to compel less immoral or destructive behavior, both to oneself and to others. Also, alcohol has more fuck it. If you're dieting, if you want to get drunk, you're talking about dropping 4, 6, 800 calories, depending on how much, what type of alcohol you're drinking. You want to get high? Easy breezy, man. Nothing to worry about. You can toke as many weeds as you want and just not have a problem with it. The reason why this is important is because everybody uses weed, or at least a lot of people use weed, and it leads to a lot of people being incarcerated. America has more people incarcerated per country, has more people incarcerated than any other country on Earth, okay? America is at number 1 when it comes to the per capita incarceration rate. Per capita, 330 million people in this country, and we still beat out El Salvador, which is second up, by about 80 or so people per 100,000. And look at the countries we're in company with, by the way. El Salvador, Turkmenistan, Thailand, Palau, Rwanda, Cuba, Maldives, Bahamas, and Grenada. Okay? You're not exactly talking, European social democracies over here. And we beat all of them. I mean, at the top. Now, when it comes to total incarceration, take a look at this stat. You've probably seen this on social media. This is the average line right here, 155.3 per 100,000. Got all these countries. DR Congo, Nigeria, India, very, very low. Oh, we're crossing the median. We got Mexico, Myanmar, Venezuela, and then there's America. It's practically a new chart. God, look. It's like a logarithmic graph, and we broke it. Nothing else even comes... I mean, Thailand, I guess, comes close. But just... shoom. Cool. And the reason why we have such a high incarceration rate is in large part because of the drug war. Hold on. America... prison population over time. See, there aren't that many murderers and rapists in America. You know, not a cataclysmic number, at least, relatively speaking. But the drug war made it so that you could be arrested for being, you know, otherwise a completely healthy and law-abiding citizen, except from time to time you happen to have, say, for example, sort of vague and brief association with recreational drugs. Prison and jail distinction isn't the relevant thing that we're looking at here. We're just looking at the overall spike. The drug war started in the 60s, and the rate of incarceration skyrocketed during the 1980s, during the Reagan administration and onwards, when policies were put into place to really start punishing people for smoking on their days off. So, all of that being said, it concerns me that the Biden administration, which has, at least on paper, signaled an interest in being amicable to marijuana legalization, and has a vice president, Kamala Harris, who bragged about having smoked back in college when she was responsible for putting people in jail for same, is now throwing out staffers because they happen to token smoke at some point in their lives. That is ridiculous to me. It signals a hostility to marijuana legalization. It signals a continuation of a decades-long pattern of, we'll signal at making things better, but, no. Look, if a person's getting fired for smoking so much that it's affecting their job, that's one thing. But this, to me, kind of feels like a bait and switch, that these staffers were kind of led on to believe, like, yeah, we're the cool White House, you know? Okay, we do background tests on everyone here. We know if you've used drugs. We're talking about staffers for the government. These are obviously people who have been subjected to drug tests and security clearances. But it's cool. We're cool. You know, we're not gonna fire you. It's not biggie, not a big one. You know. But then they get zooted. That's not cool to me. And it seems to me like that might be indicative of a long-term problem too. That as it goes on, maybe we'll see state by state some legalization, but I don't want to just see the states trickle in to, into proper attitudes towards recreational marijuana use. I want to see an aggressive federal government forcefully advocating for the decriminalization of marijuana to the greatest possible extent, or to make it federally legal. Just drop the federal problem. You know how in California you can smoke weed recreationally, and in Washington you can smoke weed recreationally, but if you take a flight from California to Washington and you have a joint in your suitcase, you're going to get arrested? That's because airports, air travel, and other forms of transportation are regulated by the federal government. The TSA is a federal department, which means that if they catch you with weed, even if you're in a state where it is legal, they can arrest you for it. Something being federally illegal, but state legal, means that federal agents can still arrest you and charge you federally, but on a state level they cannot. And thankfully, city police and county police operate on a state level. So be careful with that stuff, folks. And they'll catch you. They will. TSA, they got them dogs. They'll sniff out your weed, Be careful. Then what's the point, Lamau? Well, there's been a disconnect between the wishes of some elements of the state governments and of the general federal government. And the federal government's job at this point should be unabashedly to support weed just being whatever. Just treat it like alcohol, okay? That should be their policy, all right? If Kamala Harris is comfortable enough with marijuana that she can joke about how she has partaken in the past, then the federal government should be able to get on board with this. You do not get social clout points for saying you toked it up back in college, but then actually enter government and don't meaningfully do anything to address this subject. All right? It's not cool. It's very uncool. It's harshing my vibes, as it so happens. It also means, implicitly, by the way, that any staffers at the White House kind of have a potential anvil hanging over their head. See, again, most young people, or at least a lot of young people, smoke weed, at least occasionally. And for that reason, an administration that's wishy-washy on whether or not they're willing to allow people who smoke weed to work in their administration, that gives them leeway to start barring, blacklisting, firing, or suspending people who they don't like based on an arbitrary enforcement of that policy. We're well past time to begin changing our federal attitude towards marijuana. How many how many prisoners? Hold on. How many prisoners in America for marijuana crimes? I hate that word, marijuana. An estimated 40,000 people today are incarcerated for marijuana offenses, even as the overall legal cannabis industry is booming. 40,000. Now, that sounds like a lot, but you might be thinking, only 40,000 in a country of 300 million? Well, tarry not, people. This only refers to current incarcerations, okay? Now, people who get arrested for marijuana offenses don't usually spend that much time in jail. Sometimes they spend no time in jail. I'd be willing to bet that the majority of people who get arrested for marijuana possession usually don't see any time in jail, except for when awaiting a court date if they're not allowed, free reign. But rather, they're given some other kind of punishment, whether that be parole or probation or, community service or something like that. And additionally, even if they do see the inside of a jail cell, sometimes it can be for as little as 3 months. Meaning that while only 40,000 Americans are presently incarcerated for marijuana offenses, I would be willing to bet that every single year in America sees about 100,000 people in some way victimized by way of our federal policy or state policies on marijuana. That I'd be willing to bet that, 100%. About 100,000, maybe as many as 120, 130,000 every single year get time in jail, get arrested, get some fine, some blah. Is it state or federal? Can Biden pardon them? It depends on the charge. But I don't think Biden's going to pardon 40,000 people. What Biden needs to do, what the Democrats need to do, is they need to push aggressively for treating marijuana the same way we treat alcohol on a federal level. We absolutely should. There's no reason not to. Alcohol is way more destructive than weed, and everyone in the White House drinks alcohol. It's ridiculous. They'll fire people, suspend White House staffers for smoking weed, but there are people there who drink. Drinking is way more potentially destructive than marijuana. For Christ's sake, we had a work culture built around alcohol consumption. Back in the 1950s and 60s, Mad Men, like, yeah, I'm a hard smoking detective, and yep, I go down 3 glasses of whiskey every morning before. And this is just a part of the American mythos. This is just Americana. But weed, oh no, not weed. In spite of the fact that nobody overdoses on weed and it causes essentially no domestic violence and so on. Bosh, I'm pretty sure there are plenty of senior staffers that have been charged with a DUI. Yeah. Charged with a DUI. Yeah, exactly. DUIs do damage. Smoking weed on its own does not. Now, you shouldn't smoke and drive. You can, but usually I don't think that tends to happen. Drunk people are more confident than high people. Whatever. Anyway, this is a problem should have been solved a long time ago. Long overdue for being solved.